the Mafia maybe is dwindling down in the one in the rage of the defeat, and then kind of not quite draft season dying down a little bit. How are you feeling?
I mean, I don't know about you. On the one hand, I like this part of the year. I enjoy the off season and the team building stuff. So I'm excited for free agency to start. I'm excited for for us to get some new rookies in. But at the same time, I'm also sick of the off season already
Yeah.
somehow.
But I think my problem is I agree with you that I love this part of the off season. I pride myself on that free agency part of it. It just you're getting more and more limited with the ability of resources. And this free agency class kind of isn't great. Like there's some things I'd like, but nothing that I'm really pounding for the table for like there have been over the last few years. And maybe I'm also one of these homers apparently that doesn't think it's as bad. The roster isn't as bad of shape maybe as others do, where we need like the high end talent. But this free agency class, I talk to my brother who's a Bears fan all the time, and they've got a ton of money. They'll probably be competing for some of the same guys as us, but like they're not going to find super high end talent in this free agency class. It's not that great.
Well, it's kind of the perfect class for a team that isn't looking to take any big swings, right? Which is kind of what
I don't.
at least what we've been told.
I would counter that with I think when there are big swings to be had, this team doesn't need the big swings, and when there are to be had, it flushes out some of the teams with a lot of cap money that would go in on those big players that they need those big players. I think it might
Yeah,
hurt the
that's true.
Bills that there's teams with money to spend that have needs. So like the guys we like in that interior offensive line spot, Ben Powers, Reisner, stuff like that. I could see Chicago just saying, "Hey, we got more money than the Bills. Let's just get this guy." Right? Like we're not going to spend big elsewhere. Maybe we can spread it out and compete with people because our team's not as good, so we have to give more money. Is another way to look at it. Playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking more, I guess, from the fan perspective, where it's like, I mean, the people that the players that people seem to be pounding the table for are like Jacoby Myers,
Yeah,
which is like kind of underwhelming when you think about it.
I like the talent. Um, I
Oh,
also,
I'm not. Yeah, it's
yeah,
nothing against Jacoby Myers. It's just more that like
it's the market. Yeah,
he's the big name. Yeah, from receivers and
yeah.
yeah,
Odell,
yeah, true.
is
Oh
probably
God.
there. Ah, you knew I'd get it in. You knew I'd get it in. Yeah, I think that's playing into maybe how I'm feeling right now in terms of usually I'm a little bit more excited heading into free agency. I think you're right that it's already trending towards a long off season here, and not having a lot of free agency options or the assets to do with that feels like the mafia that it's going to fix everything. I think is also just adding to that, kind of waiting for the draft. Greg Thompson's in here, big night for my guy
Woo!
Greg.
What's going on, guys?
What's
Yeah, it's
happening,
it's
man?
funny when a lot of people like during the season. I was one of those people who liked the idea of Jacoby Myers until you realize that he's actually the number one receiver on the market, which means he's going to get paid a ridiculous amount of money. And I liked him when he was a sneaky, cool value, not when he might get like $15 million a year.
He might get more than that, right?
It's possible. It's possible. I mean, 17 and a half, like that, it's not crazy. Like him getting the Christian Kirk deal is not crazy.
I mean, look at where we were last year with receivers. I mean, everybody was shocked at how quickly that market rose. I mean, maybe it flattens out, but who
Yeah.
knows?
Most economic trends will tell you that that's
Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden, receivers are going to start giving discounts. I mean, that's got to come at some point, right? With all of the talent coming up out of the
I
draft.
do think there's going to be an interesting thing happen in the market here. When we talk about receivers, I do. It's easy to flip that position because somebody's always going to lose the game of musical chairs, like Greg likes to talk about. Whether it's in free agency, whether it's guys that are frustrated in their contract situation, on an expiring deal, looking for a way out, whether it's in the draft with a new crop of guys coming in every year, like somebody's going to lose in those individual silos, the game of musical chairs, and there's going to be a value, a way to add to that room any given year. The way how many wide receiver skill positions there are. So That's what drives me nuts, I think, about this. We have to get a skill position weapon in the first round is such a nonsense idea to me because one, it never is a guaranteed thing to hit. Two, there are other ways to get more high end talent on this team that doesn't require a huge contract or breaking the bank with the salary cap right now. Cool, whatever. No one agrees. That's fine.
It's
I don't
hard. It's hard because I think that there's each area you go to is, it decreases in probability, and people want the sure thing. People, oh no, I want to
Yeah,
make sure that we're adding in, by making sure they feel like that's spending a ton of money or a first round pick, and that there are a lot of situations where you can, but it's not wrong. Most of the premium receivers were higher picks. There's not a ton of Stephon Diggs floating around there.
sure.
He is one of the best examples, but for the most part, most of them are more premium picks, top 50 picks for sure. So I get it that people want to go that route, but you also can draft someone, and I don't know that I want to bank on a fourth and fifth round pick, but if we take a day one
Sure.
or day two player and some value signing, I think that with development from Shakir and another great season from Diggs, and heck, even if it's just the same season from Davis, but you add in two pieces like that with Shakir stepping forward, and I know there was a couple really interesting metrics floating out there yesterday about how dynamic he was in man coverage in some areas.
And maybe we should talk about maybe Josh Allen taking a step forward,
You
increasing some
know,
of the production
I
of these guys.
I've actually been told you're not legally allowed to say that out loud within the county
Right.
you sit in.
Makes
Like
sense.
I can say it from Ohio, but I actually, if someone hears
I
you
pay
say that,
taxes. I might go to prison.
yeah, if someone hears you
Um,
say that out loud, I don't know.
there are, yeah, I agree that you're more likely to hit in those scenarios. I also, Greg, you know me, Chris, you've heard it. Probably everybody's sick of hearing me say it. Like, I don't think the weapons are necessarily in as bad of a position going into the 2023 season. I think where my concern is what's beyond that. But again, I think you can turn these rooms around pretty quickly and substantially. And Greg, where are you at? Because I know you're much more conservative with assets than I am, even though probably not as conservative as people think you are. You're willing to spend some money here. I keep in the back of my mind having this little idea that, like, I'm also okay at this point with the window. I believe the window's open for a long time, but it's going to be different variations of how open it is. With as open as it is right now, when are we gonna say F them picks and do something kind of crazy in an expiring deal and then getting that person in and working one of Beane's magic deals of, hey, let's backload this thing and get another good wide receiver in here or playmaker or however. Like how when is that trigger pull for you, if ever?
So I absolutely think it's possible. All of them are opportunity based. Like, those are hard things to hunt. Like, you kind of have to find them. They just
Yeah,
kind of stumble across your lap and be like, oh, well, I didn't realize that was the case. Whereas when we had no one, Bean talked about he didn't get Stephon Diggs until the third time that he tried
right.
to get him.
Yeah,
I don't know that we're in that mode where he's hunting that player. It's more so be like, oh, well, I was calling about this. I didn't realize you guys were ready to move on from
Tyler Boyd. Right.
correct. Yeah, insert veteran wide receiver X.
Yeah.
So I think that absolutely could happen this spring. I think each year that Stephon Diggs, I guess the term would be ages, each year that he gets 1 year older, all of a sudden it's, oh, all right, maybe we need to look a little bit more, which again is why so many people are looking for that first round pick wide receiver now, because
Yeah.
in their minds it's, oh, he can be a luxury for now, and then in year three ready to be wide receiver one, which is
Right.
sound logic. So the bad news is I don't think it's a top priority to go out and get a name weapon. The good news is it's possible, and they can do it if they want to. They absolutely
Yeah.
can make that fit if they want to.
Yeah, and I just think again, I agree with you that the more away from the draft scenarios you go, it probably is more unlikely. It's harder to make trades. Like it's harder for all those things to line up and work out. So it's definitely not the plan. But I don't. I think we probably discount how many ways teams can add talent. I think I've seen for years where the Bills go into the draft, and there is a position of need. and the Bills pass up on it. But they're always a way to get more talent throughout this league. Guys get cut. There's a lot of cut downs and stuff throughout the league. Different things like that. And again, I don't think the weapons for 2023 are that far off. It really is, to your point, that future, what happens in the future of that position. And I don't know that you have to necessarily do it in a, I think you can turn it around. You could flip it next offseason if Diggs really starts to age out quicker than we think.
When's the last time we went into training camp thinking, I'm not so sure about this wide receiver group? Like, I feel like that's a room
year.
that they tend to.
Duke Williams on 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
It was a few years ago, right?
I think the pre Diggs, you get into that mode. I don't know that we thought that John Brown and Cole Beasley were going to be the answer. I think there was some hope at that time because we had so little, and we were coming out of Kelvin Benjamin and Andre Holmes and names like that being the actual contributing receivers. So then it was like the Eddie Murphy bit about eating a cracker for the first time coming out of the desert. Like, oh, is this a Ritz? We weren't used to having anything. So Cole Beasley and John Brown seemed amazing. And then all of a sudden you get Stephon Diggs and you're like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. We didn't know what it was supposed to look like. Okay, I get it now. So, I think it was phases. We were literally
2018.
Yeah, the worst ever. Like, you can make an argument that was the worst receiving core in NFL history.
We had, let's go through it real quick. It was no particular order. Jeremy Curley, Deontay Thompson, Andre Holmes, Kelvin Benjamin, Robert Foster, Terrell Pryor, Zay Jones, Ray McLeod, and Isaiah McKenzie.
The best part of that entire season was that people were hyped for Deontay Thompson too. I remember when he got signed, people were excited.
I won't lie. A piece of me wondered if we could make something out of Pryor and be, well, I mean, we have seen it for a minute.
My favorite thing that I'll never let him live down, my boy Nate Geary trying to get Robert Foster to be wide receiver 1. He really wanted it to happen. It just didn't work out. It was everybody was clinging for hope to one of these guys though, right? Like, I was in on Zay Jones being a really good wide receiver too. Like, that was my hill that I was dying on at the time. I think everybody had somebody in this group that they thought could be it.
So another question for you then. So we felt good about the wide receiver room for the last few years, right? When's the last time we went into training camp feeling good about the offensive line?
I, for one, am looking forward to the first time.
Exactly. Right?
I think I felt pretty good going into, I mean, you're always going to have some weak links. I felt not this year as much, but the year before, I felt a little bit better. It was just can somebody beat out John Feliciano? That was really where I was at the time going in there. You're going to have some weak links. I felt better than again, going back to that 2018 season, maybe it's what Greg's saying, where it's just like, oh man, this is just nice to have not totally the worst offensive line in all of football. They legitimately went from 32nd to like 14th in a single offseason. That's not nothing.
I think I was excited for it going into this season too. I thought we made some signings, especially after the second half of the year last year. You were seeing some production, especially towards the playoffs. I thought Brown was not really taking a step forward, but I thought he had kind of his established role, especially in the running game. So when they brought in Saffold and Questenberry, I was like, oh, that's the depth you need. That might actually be good. And it wasn't, but definitely was something that I thought would be good.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess it's tough to remember sometimes, but I feel like most people did feel fairly good about the Saffold signing.
Yeah.
It's just tough. It's tough to look back now at the.
I felt better about the Saffold signing because it was in conjunction with Cromer. Like, I think I sold myself on Cromer needs his guy. This is going to add the athleticism we need. And I talked myself into it there, but it didn't really pan out.
Yeah, I mean, I do that kind of thing all the time where I describe things as, self-fulfilling in the sense that when they have inside info, and that's a perfect example, when you have a position coach come over and either we do or don't sign a player, I am always going to believe in that decision more because, I thought we'd be in on him. And the fact that we didn't even touch base means to me that position coach got here and said, no, let's not go after that guy. And they go, okay, well, he would know better than anyone else. On the other side, I tell myself that it means something good all the time. But sometimes it can also be bias in relationship and that they want to believe in the player, even if maybe they shouldn't. So to Joe's point, I certainly talked myself into Roger Saffold now in hindsight way more than I should have, but even more than I should have with the evidence that was presented with the steps down that he had. And then obviously I was proved ridiculously wrong because he was a Pro Bowl guard this year.
Yeah. Anyways. I hate you.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. But
so where's the lie?
What I will say is it feels terrible because it was a signing that we probably were maybe a little bit overhyped for, but I will probably also agree that it wasn't worse than John Feliciano. Like, I don't think they took a step backward. They fixed the position, but definitely didn't go backward. And to Joe's point, I will say now, kind of as he made that point, looking back at the end of the season, that is the way the offensive line playing and clicking and gelling made you think that if they got a little bit better than Feliciano, like they could maintain where they were at, and that just they never really got back to playing in the type of dominant fashion they were at the end of the year, for sure. And so to answer the original question, I do probably think we were more excited about this offensive line going into the season than maybe we feel as the season went on.
Speaking of offensive line, morning guys. Spencer Brown hasn't come up yet. He's going to be entering year 3. Is he going to have a jump? What are we feeling like?
Greg and I, when he got drafted, I'm having a tough time with Spencer Brown because I think Uber posted the question the other day of, has this been a draft bust or has he met expectations? And I think what we need to do is not necessarily use our curved expectations, but go back to how we felt when he was drafted. Because Greg and I were on the show saying, I don't want to see this guy until now. We didn't want to see him until this year. And
we literally were talking about 2023 when it happened.
Correct. And he has been thrust into a different role, probably before he was ready. We know that he was a really raw prospect. So some of it's got to be on a curve. And Brandon Beane was right, the injuries and stuff. But I am frustrated. And a guy for the size and traits, man, I see it all the time. Like, seeing him just get pushed back time and time again is like hard to watch when Josh Allen's sitting back there getting hit. I don't love any of it right now. I wish that the development was able to go the way we probably expected it to go. And hopefully the baptism by fire will pay off this year and he'll take a really big step.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just going to add that, I also think we need to do a better job of more quickly moving on from draft status.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. It's a factor early on. Going into a player's third year, I couldn't care less where they were drafted. No. That's not a thing anymore. Like now, the same thing. I obviously the easy example was always that. Well, Matt Milano was this scrappy, fun 5th-round pick we didn't expect anything of, and Tremaine Edmonds was supposed to be a generational 1st-round pick, but by the 3rd year, they were pretty much the same player and doing the same things, which was really cool. But then all of a sudden, Matt Milano gets a $40 million contract, and none of his expectations went up. Like, we just pick and choose where we apply them. That once someone is a late-round pick, they get this grace period forever of always being a good value. And, like, listen, you're a starter now. I need you to improve. And I am now in the position, I went on my whole rant about sacred cows, in that I am in the position now where you do not make any decisions this offseason of we don't need to sign, draft, trade for X because we have Spencer Brown.
Right.
That's not a sentence Brandon Beane's going to say. If we bring in a guy that can beat him out to be the starting right tackle, God bless him. And if Spencer Brown also taps into his historically elite athletic profile and becomes more consistent, that's great. But honestly, I kind of think those athletic gifts would have applied a little bit more by now if they were going to really do that. And I just don't feel like we've seen enough where I'm ready to just put all my eggs in that basket and assume he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, I do think Greg Drew from the Rock Pile Report says it really well, that he's just big for no reason. Like, and that does, every time I'm seeing him get pushed back, I just think that one of my top priorities for this offseason is challenge him for the starting spot. They're like, no sacred cows, make him go out and earn it, make him use those traits and live up to what we thought he'd be.
So two drafts ago, we were trying to address tackle, right, with Spencer Brown and Tommy Doyle. And it's been tough because, I mean, we lost Doyle for almost his entire second season.
Mhm.
You know, those two guys are, I think, right, supposed to be competing or platooning kind of the way that Benford and Elam were drafted to fill a role. And you saw competition there. You saw Benford taking some snaps away from Elam early in the season. So, I mean, I'm not ready to make a call right on Brown or Doyle for that matter, or the tackle position. I mean, I think that they absolutely should continue to bring in offensive line talent, but I think that the jury's still out on both those guys.
I will say what Greg used to tell me a lot, and I think it applies to Tommy Doyle the most, but it definitely here to Spencer Brown, that hope's not a plan. And I'm full protect Josh Allen mode. I think to the same conversation we were having about wide receiver, I think it might even apply a little bit more here with the offensive line of like, if a really good tackle is just sitting there and it's like a SEC tackle who's gone up against big competition, you can apply that person as a starter right away. And like Spencer Brown's probably looking up the depth chart. I'm absolutely running that card up to the podium. Like, I'm all about protecting Josh Allen, and these guys haven't given me any indication that they are worth protecting in any way in hopes that they develop to what our plan was 2 years ago. But I get what you're saying. Like, we do need to be more patient in that developmental process sometimes. Whittle's up, raising his hand. It's really nice of you to raise your hand to ask a question. I like that. What's happening?
Very good manners.
I know.
I'd like to get my kids to listen to that.
Well,
But you were.
Hey guys, good morning, everyone. I'm glad that, not that I'm not glad that Aaron and Chris are here and everyone else, but I am glad that Greg is here, because I have a question, Greg. In the event that we do not sign Tremaine Edmonds to an extension, Jack Campbell or Drew Sanders in like round 2 in my opinion, would be the obvious move to kind of replace that size, length, athleticism, and the back half of the defense. I mean, in the middle of the defense. What do you think we could do with the money not used on Tremaine as far as upgrading offensive line, potentially getting a veteran safety to come in here, or or maybe an edge rusher that may come available if San Diego decides to cut salary cap. Excuse me, not San Diego, LA.
They're still San Diego to me. It's fun. I think that is absolutely something we have to face. Aaron and I talked about it Wednesday night. The money that Tremaine Edmonds might get is going to be substantial, and it's possible that comes from Buffalo. If it doesn't, you're right. That now shoots to the top of the need list. Now, does that mean, a prospect like you referenced in the second round? I won't lie. I haven't gotten into linebacker prospects much yet. The most work I've done so far is offensive line and wide receivers, and I'm still doing a lot of free agency work, but I'll get more into the draft linebackers as we go here. And honestly, I'll let free agency direct how much work I do on that, because I don't know that we are in the mode where their plan is going to be to turn over that spot to a second or third round rookie. Now, it's possible. Maybe we just draft a stud that they believe in wholeheartedly. I think they'll consider moving Matt Milano to middle linebacker. I know Eric's talked about the fact that it's unlikely but possible. I think it's more likely, if they do lose Tremaine Edmonds, that we'd see a Band-Aid signing like a Anthony Walker, like a Deion Jones, like a Drew Tranquil, someone that, hey, we missed out, we're not going to spend that much, but we also still want to sign a starting caliber guy, and we're going to try to figure out a contract that can make that work. So I think that's a little more likely. Kazir White, who had just played in the Super Bowl, there's an awful lot of free agents over there in Philadelphia. I think that if we lose Tremaine Edmonds, I think we see a pairing. I think we see a short-term deal on a veteran, maybe even a 1-year deal, but a short-term 1 or 2 year deal on a veteran that can start day one with an investment draft pick. And maybe it is one of the names you referenced there. And that it's someone that can either push them for the starting spot in a Ramon Humber, Matt Milano type situation, or at minimum is just outstanding depth and ready to take over when that contract expires. Some people have talked about moving Matt Milano to middle and Terrell Bernard starting, and I mean, I guess that makes sense in theory, but I haven't seen anything from Terrell Bernard that tells me he's a starting caliber linebacker. So again, hope is not a plan. I'm
Yeah,
not
and
putting my eggs in that basket.
if you think teams were taking advantage of the lack of size with Taron Johnson on the field, I would think that
Good Lord.
would expose some things. What do you guys think about?
Heck, if you did that, Aaron, if you did that situation, all of a sudden Matt Milano would be our biggest
Yeah,
of the three guys
it's tough.
between Taron, Terrell Bernard, and Milano.
There's a part of me in like I like to just think of football philosophy and like fantasy land a little bit, and there's part of me that likes the idea of like positionless, borderline hybrid safety type linebackers, but I think that's maybe more of a that sounds good in my head than applies on the field. I think offensive coordinators probably start to take advantage of that at some point. What do we think about?
You're gonna try to put Saran Neal at middle linebacker,
I
aren't
will
you?
not. I pounded the table for him 2 years ago to break out, and I'm not doing it again. When somebody tells you who they are, believe them. And Saren's told us, yeah, I love him as special teams. But Dotson, is he an option here of a guy that's been in the system that they have trusted in spots to come in? Would this be like, hey, we lost out on plan A. We've got a guy that and then maybe we can draft and develop behind him, but that might be a cheap out of a guy with experience that it has familiarity here.
You should tweet at him now.
If you say his name 2 more times out loud, he'll show up on the space.
I don't want that. I don't want that at all. I know fans,
on the same page, Greg. I like it.
I know fans don't love that his interactions always on Twitter, but I think that he's got to be in play here.
Yeah, if I was famous, I'd search my name too. It's fine.
So you're saying you search your name?
I don't yet, but it makes me want to. So Eric's done some work before on Terrell Dodson, and there's been flashes. Like there's been moments where, like, hey, we might have a little something here, and then there's also moments where it's like, oh yeah, no, maybe we don't. And that stretch of the second half of the Minnesota game, and then the game he missed afterwards, and there where we had a legit window to be like, all right, what is this going to look like? It looked bad. And I don't want to say that there's no chance he's ever a starting caliber linebacker, but I mean, the comments I made about not putting eggs in the basket of a Spencer Brown or, of a Terrell Bernard, Dodson's lower on that pecking order than I am of how much I'm willing to trust or invest. So, of course, everybody's got a chance to break out. We just saw Geno Smith have his breakout season in age 32. God bless him. Anything can happen here. I'm not planning on that, and I'm certainly not making any decisions as though we have something because we have Terrell Dodson.
Yeah, I made this point in favor of Tremaine Edmonds I want to say right when the season ended. Get ready to see a lot more of that Minnesota, Detroit, Cleveland stretch without him because it was brutal. And that middle of the field is going to be an open target for any quarterback. It's just, he's so important in the passing game that I think if we lose him, you're going to see the difference immediately.
My biggest point too for this is Brandon Beane said we're not going to make any splash moves or anything like that in free agency. I believe him because they aren't there to be made. I don't like this class. I said it earlier. It's fine, I think, for filling in some of the things that I believe they need, depth pieces, getting some different pieces, chess piece type players. But on the high end of things, it's not there. Tremaine Edmonds is the high end free agent, right? Like if you're able to retain him, and especially the type of deal that Greg, you've mentioned before, the loss of him is so substantial that getting him back is your splash free agency move going forward. And you're buying in on a young ascending guy. Like, I know the people want to spend money on the offense. I just don't think the money's there to be spent this year. I think you're going to probably overpay for mediocre level players. You might still be able to get a guy like that. And I do think then you just use a lot of your assets on the draft to bring in the offensive players that you're looking for. So I think you can still get the best of both worlds. There's ways to do it. But Edmonds that's the splash guy. I think if he hits free agency and goes to another team, they're celebrating a huge splash free agency slam dunk, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, if you look at the
Chris, real quick,
sorry.
I apologize. I got to drop off. I just wanted to say something real quick. And the tweet that went out from 919 Bills fans about Levante David being a possibility is not someone that was on my radar until poking around last night. And he is a veteran 1 year plug and play kind of guy that would be the possibility if we miss out. I just needed some shameless self-promotion real quick here. I'm really excited. Tonight is going to be the debut of the new Greg Tompsett Sports Show. A ton of people have put in a lot of work. Folks that you guys know, Lauren is always around. Chris F, who you guys know is Low Buff Ceilings. Michael, who you guys see as Omega Outlier. Just some really smart, talented, funny people have put in a lot of work to try to make me sound interesting when we go live tonight. So we've got a lot of stuff set up. Really excited about it. Had a great guest that I already recorded with, and I think it's going to be worthwhile. So 9 o'clock tonight, the Greg Tompsett Sports Show. We're going to have our debut episode and see if we can have some fun.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to that.
I miss you. I already miss you.
Later, guys.
Thanks for stopping by, man. I was just going to say, Aaron, like to your point there, show me one guy that's available in free agency at any position that would make a comparable difference, a comparable addition to the team that you would lose, right, if you lose Tremaine Edmonds.
He's the biggest one out there, right?
Yeah.
With age, what he's already done, what all the league is planning on him to continue to do. It's just Bills fans that don't like him.
Yeah. He's going to get paid. He's going to be expensive. And yeah, I mean, he honestly has earned it. So,
yeah,
good for him.
Got more.
Yeah, what's up, Widow?
Yeah, my next question was kind of for Greg, but he already stepped off. But I'll ask it anyway.
I see how it is.
No. I'm sorry, man. But no, I was asking that. I was just going to ask it. You put out a number earlier about potentially, Tremaine commanding somewhere around 105. Yeah, 6 years, 105 or something like that.
Yeah, it's like 17 average.
Right. Are we still believing that that's possible, or do we think that somebody's going to come out and throw him 20, 21, just to pry him away from Buffalo?
I don't even know if it gets fully to free agency. I'm sure there will be talk of those conversations. Brandon Beane's going to be able to work something that maybe gets it above Greg's number a little bit. But again, to Greg's point, he can get that early cap hit down to 7, right? Like he can stagger it so that you're really paying on the back end. And with an asset like Tremaine, I don't have a ton of problem paying it on the back end because he's hitting his prime on the back end of his contract. So it's not like a Von Miller that you're on the hook for years, or somebody at the end, like putting a 5-year deal into Jordan Poyer is probably not a great investment. I think with Tremaine, you're all right. But I think there might be a team that just goes too high, and Tremaine will go into free agency and ride that. But I think this deal gets done ahead of free agency. It's going to be uncomfortable for Bills fans to look at. The haters are going to be out more than ever about it. But
not me. I love Tremaine. So I have been a Tremaine Edmonds supporter and defender since the day we drafted him. My hateful comments towards other Bills fans are littered all over Facebook and Twitter in defense of him. But another question I have is, because this free agency class is so weak, could we potentially spice it up a little bit more by adding to it, by sending someone that might be on their 5th-year option and making him available for other teams to go and bid for potential draft capital? Because he has 14 sacks.
Ed Oliver, is that who you're
he's an undersized defensive tackle in a defensive scheme that consistently lines up at nickel. So you're already dealing with a light box. Why they drafted an undersized defensive tackle still escapes me. But could we potentially find a team that has a multitude of picks, like a Philadelphia, like a Houston, like a Atlanta, that would not mind potentially, or even a Cleveland that would not that is looking for defensive tackle help. $10.5 million is not cheap, but it's not expensive either. It's a contract year for him. You can expect there's a lot of potential there, paired with the right running mate. I don't know, a Jordan Davis type or somebody with some size. You may get the best out of Ed by just getting him one-on-ones all the time. Is that on the table? Do we have any indication that may be on the table for Buffalo right now?
You want to take that, Chris, to start?
I mean, I like Jordan Davis. I don't know, man. I think that people might be a little too down on Ed Oliver, frankly. I mean, he kind of does fit what the Bills want to do with that three-tech defensive lineman. I mean, he's a gap penetrator. He's disruptive. I mean, he maybe hasn't been as consistent as we'd like, but he's also dealt with injuries. Bringing in Daquan Jones was huge, right? I mean, we've talked about it a lot. Eric broke it down. He broke it down before free agency even happened last year. He was saying how big, bringing in someone like Daquan Jones would be. And then look, it happened. We signed the guy. All of a sudden, he's drawing double teams. He's freeing up space for Ed Oliver, for Tremaine, for Matt Milano. So I guess I wouldn't rush to move on from Ed. I mean, they already invested, in that fifth-year option. So, I mean, my feeling is they're going to let it play out and see, how he does in that fifth year.
Yeah, I'm not in a rush to move. You would have to knock me out of the park with an offer. It would give me something I really need for me to move on from Ed. I do think fans are too low on him by a little bit, and Daquan Jones is the answer of playing next to him, putting him next to the right size guy. I want to see what I'm worried about in terms of getting stuff in that defensive line would be who backs up Daquan Jones here going forward, as he's going to come up on a contract year next year. We saw what happened when an injury happened to him, how bad it looks not having a real backup one tech. I'd like to
I
see
think they'll
maybe an
extend him,
investment.
right? Don't you think they'll extend Daquan?
You would hope so, but I mean, I don't know. You think they
Yeah,
can
that
get
would
that
clear
done
some
ASAP?
money. That would clear some money on the cap as well if we were able to extend
That
him.
cap's going to go up though too. We got to remember that.
Right,
Like as we
right.
get we're still dealing with a little bit of the COVID backup against the cap. But once the real YouTube deal really hit, all that stuff starts to really bank and hit, this cap's just going to get out of control. So you're also going to see a bunch of players raising the market, and all these Bills contracts look better and better every single year.
I'd like to throw a name out there in the draft. Uh, Probably a day 3 pick out of Western Kentucky, 605, 325, 330. Broderick Martin. His run defense grades are not great. They're pretty average, but his pass rush grades are very, very good for a defensive tackle. So that's just a name I will put out there to kind of add to
Nice.
the crop there. But that's it. Thanks, guys.
No, thank you, man.
Thanks, Whittle.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Another point I was thinking on the sorry, Joe, real quick, on this Tremaine Edmonds conversation, a bunch of these other talks about how we're going to be able to do things going forward. I've often been critical of Google Sports Entertainment and some of the stuff they've done with Buffalo Sports. One area that I really want to praise Terry in is giving the Bills the resources to do stuff that other teams don't. They're the more we find out about some NFL owners, there's some really good ones that spend a lot of money, but there's some really just sticklers. And in other sports too. I'm a fan of the Chicago Bulls in basketball, and it sickens me because for years I called for the firing of the GM and player personnel guy, and it turns out it's the owner who just doesn't care. He's unwilling to give them the resources to make the types of moves to be competitive in their league, where you can go over the salary cap and pay a luxury tax. So to have an owner that is invested and is giving his own resources to the team to sort of get around some salary cap stuff, get the resources they need, I think it does need to be part of this conversation, that it's a benefit to us. I think it's going to hit Cincinnati in a couple of years how cheap their ownership is, and it's going to ruin a good thing where I think ours is invested in maintaining what we've got.
Any team is going to look stellar with the quarterback's rookie contract. You can build a roster around it. You don't have to spend a lot of money, especially if you draft well. Those first couple of years are always going to make you look like the smartest people in the room, and you deserve praise because you draft right. But when the money talks, it's going to change everything, and I think Cincinnati is going to be the next victim of that.
Joe, is there something else you wanted to get into? if not, I wanted to just speak on the Pagula point real quick. I'll take that as a no. Anyway, we got that health update on Kim Pagula last week. And yeah, I mean, just say like the Pagulas, they get some harsh words sometimes, maybe more from Sabres fans than from Bills fans. But I mean, if you want to look at the day that this team turned around or started to turn around, it's the day that Terry and Kim Pagula bought it. And I mean, that was the impetus to all of this, and they deserve a ton of credit for what they've done. And even on the Sabres side, honestly, like the Sabres have been looking much better and showing a lot of growth. So just wanted to give a shout out to them and best wishes to Kim and to the whole family.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I can't believe that was only last week that article came out. Yeah, no, I think we're super lucky, and I really think like there's some owners out there that are legitimately cheap, and it impacts their franchise's ability to do some more creative things. Brandon Beane talks about it at the end of every press conference. If he ever needs to go scout, like they give him the resources to get out there. Not all GMs do that, or teams have budgets for all that stuff. And some of that behind the scenes stuff really does matter in keeping this team, especially as resources get tighter. You're up against the cap. You have to do a little bit more creative. Terry's going to actually have to give some of his money to some of these guys. He's willing to make those investments, and that's cool because Ralph Wilson wasn't. Right, that was part of the problem why the Bills stuck in the drought is they would overpay for some free agents, but he wasn't really able to like draft and develop and keep guys because he just wasn't willing to shell out money for it. He just didn't care as long as the tickets sold. That's all that mattered.
Yeah, you heard. Actually, Greg did an appearance on Don and Josh's podcast, If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo this week. And if you haven't heard that yet, be sure to check it out. It was a good one. They talked a little bit about the difference between the Pagulas and Ralph Wilson and how, Wilson wasn't willing to shell out. I guess like towards the end of his tenure, he loosened up a little bit because I think after years and years of people telling him he had to,
start to do it. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it's a huge advantage to have an owner that has the resources and the willingness to pay those bonuses and give you the flexibility with roster building.
Yeah, hopefully it comes into play with Tremaine here. What else we got, man? I got like 15
I got a
minutes
question.
before I really got.
I got a question.
Yeah,
what's up, BB?
Yeah,
if we want to transition, so Eric Cover One has been sending out the last couple of days photos of the Allen passes at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage, and that made me think of Dorsey and all of our tools, Cook, Hines, Shakir, Knox. So like Dorsey's first year, and then mixing these new rookie young guys in, plus Diggs, of course. Really think we could have a thing. What do you guys think of Dorsey's first year, and then maybe potential for second year?
Chris, if you want to start, you can.
I like the way that the running game developed over the course of the year, for sure. I think that it was, the Bills, the first couple of games of the year, they were just absolutely destroying teams. And I think that again, back to the whole expectations issue, right? Like, I think that set some unfair expectations for the rest of the season because, you can't, when has a team ever run the table with blowing teams out 41-10 and 31-7, whatever it was? Dorsey, it was his first year. Maybe we could have seen some more in terms of an ability to adjust on the fly. That's probably one place where he really needs to improve, and just a little more complexity, right, to the schemes. I know Eric's done a great job of breaking that stuff down. But again, like with most things, I think that people are quick to overreact and not maybe as patient as they could be in seeing how this stuff sort of develops and plays out.
Yeah, for sure. That wasn't I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to add to it that I think this goes into the conversation we're talking about adding stuff. Like, yes, they do need to add some talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But I think the biggest improvement that we want to see is it's all in the lab here over the offseason, is getting in the lab, finding what you weren't good at and working on it. I think you have the tools in-house. It's utilization of the assets you already have. Everyone wants to dump a big asset into wide receiver. I'm cool with that, but my point is like until I see us using the ones that we already have that I think Dawson Knox is a legitimate threat in the passing game. I do believe that about Gabriel Davis still. I think James Cook is a much bigger threat in an NFL offense than I gave him credit for as we drafted him. I want to see you get those guys involved and be the weapons that we expect before I want to dump more resources into you just doing it to please the fans, but that we're still not utilizing that person the right way. So I think the biggest improvements come in these meetings and having real conversations with Ken Dorsey, getting the offense together, maybe getting some player driven opinions on this stuff and getting it
And
right.
how can we not all watch the Super Bowl collectively and see the creative genius that Bieniemy is and the KC offense is and think, we have Knox, we have Shakir. Just, I think we do have it. And I'm not criticizing Dorsey at all. I think he had a great first year, and he's going to build on it. So, anyway.
No. Yeah, I think he's got some flaws. He's got some improvement. Definitely, I think the narrative around him's overblown. Just like I still think it is about Frazier as well. I think they're a good coaching staff. It's really going to come a matter of can egos get put aside, and like Sean McDermott talks about all the time, they have these hard conversations. They have these real conversations. We'll see. I think we'll find out. But I do think they have the staff, the talent to get it done. We're not far off, like it sounds. Whittle, you got some more? Because we got some other folks coming in too. And I do got I got straight up 12 minutes. This vacation starting for me right after this, so I'm out.
12-minute warning.
12-minute warning.
Yes, I definitely do. I'm getting a T-shirt made that says "Fire Dorsey." Has hashtag Fire Dorsey. I'm sorry. I went back and watched game 1 and game 2 of the season, and then looked at the rest of the year of what we did, and it's night and day. It's just night and day, and he doesn't utilize the weapons that we have. He doesn't do a good job of scheming guys open. He doesn't do a good job of scheming those gimme plays that we would get from Dayball. Um, and I mean, obviously he's not Dayball, but
Dable
the use
put up some stinkers too. I think we should
true,
reflect on
true.
Dable in the right light, and not just look at him as the recent coach of the year. I love Brian Dable, but I think actually too, if you compare some of the metrics to Brian Dable's seasons, you would see maybe a higher variance from Dable than we saw from the Bills this year.
Right, and I don't think that the issues with the production on the field, as far as yards and points and things like that, is a direct reflection, so to speak, of the coordinator. I think it's a direct reflection of the talent we have.
Yeah.
I look at this offense. We're all watching these games, and the offense looks hard. It looked harder this year. It looked like they were struggling to put up points and to get some of the same gimme plays that they got in years past. Where was the time and routes that Josh really didn't have to think about? He just kind of did them.
I will
Where
say,
was that?
I think
And
I think there's more of that stuff on tape than is being given credit for, and a lot of that is execution. There was plays to be made in a lot of games. It wasn't perfect. Again, I think there's stuff to work on. I want to see real clean. Eric did a good job of posting some screens and the challenges with some of the screen game that we see from the Bills. They should be good with the talent that they have. Getting Khalil Shakir the ball in space on a screen, I've seen it. It works. Do that. James Cook, like that's exactly what you anticipated when drafting him. Is that Patriots offense with a James White type player who's out in space? That is what you have to do in the modern NFL. So they got to clean that stuff up. I don't know that you have to fire Dorsey to do it. I think you've got good enough coaches in that room where you can figure this out. I don't know that needs to be a firing and switching some stuff up. It's not going to happen. It's Josh's boy. So you can get that shirt made, but I got bad news for you. You're going to be wearing that shirt for a couple of years, I think. I love you, Whittle, but I think Dorsey's here for a little bit, whether or not we were happy with that first performance. They're going to let him figure this out, I think.
And just a quick follow-up to what EB was saying about the Chiefs and the Super Bowl. I mean, nothing against Eric Bieniemy. He's, by all accounts, a great coordinator. But it was Andy Reid, I think, right behind the play calling and that sequencing that we saw that was so impressive.
Yeah, it's hard to, it's hard to separate one of the greatest offensive minds of all time. It's kind of the same thing. The conversation we have to have about this defense. I think a lot gets piled on Sean McDermott. I've heard directly from some people that it's not just, or that the blame gets piled directly on Leslie Frazier, but that it's still Sean McDermott has a voice very much in that room. He's a defensive mastermind in the league, so he's not going to just let it go and not have a say in that. And clearly, Andy Reid's probably even more hands-on on his offense and what
Well,
he's
he's
doing
actually
there.
doing the play calling, right? He's got the sheet.
Right. I mean, we've seen Sean McDermott do that. We've seen him grab the sheet from Leslie in some important moments, and so I think he's got some say in that too.
We got to get some people in here that have been waiting. Aladis, are you
8
there?
minute warning, and we got Eric and Aldeus. So whoever gets onto the mic here.
Apology. Yeah, sorry if we're saying your name wrong there.
Aldous. You have to tell us. Either one of you guys that gets in on mic first gets it. There we go. Eric's on it.
All right, I win. I just wanted to hit everyone with some positivity. I live in the enemy territory of Miami.
Love positivity.
I'm familiar with Dorsey and
Hey guys.
Is that you, Aldous? You can go. You were first. All good. All right. No. A lot of Dorsey as fanhood, we never had that experience of rooting for a team and not worrying how much they were going to win by. As a fan of UM and having Dorsey as my quarterback when I was down here, you didn't have to worry. He was a dominant, and he loved to put the foot on the throat. And I think we missed a lot of opportunities this year when we were trying to boat race. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's let Eric finish his point. I'm not sure. Something's going on with your mic there, I think.
What I was getting at is a lot of the time we're in the frustration of our offense not clicking. It was a lot of things that are on the outside that I believe will get tweaked this year as his first year. And yes, there were some things after the first and second game that we looked so spectacular. There's adjustments that coordinators got to make on their own, and they got to learn on their own. But I do feel when he gets clicking, this offense could, and there was some times last year where we missed opportunities by very little on drives, that we were going to boat race teams and let our defense fly and really dominate, but it didn't click. It didn't happen. I'm hoping for next year. A lot of the injuries that happened on both sides of the ball didn't affect us the last 3 years. Now, we don't have control of that. But as I'm saying is going forward, a lot of the pessimists with Dorsey, when he is the guy that I want because he wants to put the cleat on the throat and crush you. That's what I want. As a Josh Allen coordinator, I want someone who wants to kill and kill early and kill often.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly love his competitive drive. I mean, that's something that has been apparent, I think, from day one here. One thing I think that worries me a little bit is with Dorsey and Allen, if you've got too much of that sort of gunslinger mentality, where is the balance when you need it, right? But
understood. That's something that he's got to have to learn in his second year and in season adjustments.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm full of positivity with him because all these years it is literally up to the quarterback at the end of the day, and we have our guy. And I mean, we all trust in him. Peyton Manning's coordinators through the years could have taped their eyes on their eyelids and slept the whole game. So. Yeah. There's a certain thing that I have my guy and my guy has his guy, which gives me confidence going into this year. A lot of the things that happened to us this year kind of are out of our control in some aspects, but not all. Have a good vacation, Aaron.
Hey, thanks, Eric. One thing I keep coming back to with both coordinators, really, I don't need either of them fired. I really like Leslie Frazier. I think he's a good coach. I think he leads a good staff on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm fine with Ken Dorsey and allowing him to improve, just like I give some leeway to players, right? This was a first-year coordinator. I do think they're going to have the honest conversations. But some of those conversations for me on both sides of the ball need to start maybe including a heavier voice from this player-driven leadership that Sean McDermott likes to talk about so much and the leadership council that he's always leaned on. I don't know that it necessarily translates through to the on-field decisions at all times. And I think that it needs to start being more that way because the way we've seen this defense play in some big spots, I think is overcoaching. And I think that's getting away from player-driven leadership. I think if you ask the players how they want to play in those spots, it would be a lot different than what the coaches are putting them in position for. I'm not saying that the team should be running all these decisions, but you have a lot of all-pro talent at different levels of your defense, and you have really players that you've invested in along your offense that are veterans. Like, let them have some say in how to scheme some of this stuff open, where they're comfortable. I'm sure some of it goes on, but I think in some of these bigger spots that we've seen either the offense stagnate or get stuck, or the defense kind of just play overcoached in spots, I do believe the players would have a different say in that if they had the voice.
Adam, did you want to say something? We got to sign off in a couple minutes here, but let's get you in, man. It's good to see you.
Hey, thanks for letting me on. I guess some people in here agree and some disagree, I know, with this particular take, but I just wanted to speak up on behalf of the weapons that I think compared to, say, the Chiefs or others, it's on par, and I think it was just a utilization problem. I think it just got stale as the year went on. They didn't have change-ups. People kind of caught on to aspects of the scheme. I thought that they had a good plan going in. Like, you want to go in and say, like, no, we're going to hit you with 50-yard touchdowns if you don't respect it. And obviously, watching what we put on tape, people are going to respect it going forward. But they just never came back with, like, okay, now we're going to cut you up with, dump offs to James Cook like 10 times in a row, because that's literally what he's supposed to be good at. So I'm confident in Dorsey, actually. It's kind of like having, a young up-and-comer. It's like a first-round pick, I view, like, as an offensive coordinator. So I'm pretty confident that even though I kind of think it's his fault in most respects, like, I think he will improve, and Josh obviously has the confidence in him to improve. And then one last thing, I just felt like, I don't know, it felt like Josh lost some confidence in some certain teammates as the year went on. So, like, he personally did not want to go, 12 plays, 80 yards, because he didn't think that they could execute it like that. So in his mind, it's like, okay, I would rather just, make an incredible play myself than rely on Zay McKenzie or someone like that to, make 4 or 5 catches over the middle to go downfield like that. So that's just some
I think it's
scatterbrained
hard.
thoughts.
I think it's an interesting point, though.
It is. I think it's super hard, though, to go 12 plays. That's the exactly what the Bills' defense has pinned its success on, is that we don't believe your offense can string together 12, 14 plays where you're not going to make enough mistakes to give us the ball back at some point, whether it's a punt, turnover on down, something like that. I think the odds favor that. The more plays you're on the field, the harder it is to move the ball. So I get explosive plays. I'm a big fan of them. I do think that Josh and Dorsey, that Chris brought up, one of my biggest concerns is that they both are gunslingers, and you got to be able to string those plays together when you're stalled, right? And be able to methodically move the ball and get points on the board. And that didn't happen in the Bengals game. I will say those shots were available. Dorsey schemed up some great stuff, even in that Bengals game, as much as the team struggled with protections. There's plays to be made on film where Josh probably should have gone to a different spot, and you're talking about a totally different ballgame. You're talking about a shootout, probably, instead of the complete beating you got in. So there's a mix of execution. Scheme's got to get better. They got to improve on some stuff. I believe in them. This conversation, too, is still at their worst. They were still like a top 10 offense pretty much throughout the entire season. So while there's complaints, and we're up against it in terms of the window, I don't know that it's as bad as the conversation surrounding it is. But, Chris, I got to bounce, man. I got to get my car packed. We are heading out tonight and going on a vacation. I'm getting out of this cold weather in Buffalo. I need it.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
Yeah,
real quick, tomorrow night we're gonna do a Sabres watch party. We'd love to see anyone there. They're on the West Coast road trip right now, so the games are late. We decided to do a Saturday night because it's a late game. It's a 10:30 start. But yeah, playback.tv/cover1. We'll send out the link, as we get
Maybe
closer
I'll come
to.
join you. I'll be up very late. My timing is going to be off for the next 3 days.
Oh, you'll be in Hawaii, right? You'll be 5 hours ahead?
It's going to be weird. It's going to be very weird. Yeah, I don't even know. Time's not even going to be a thing to me. I'm just going to...
Yeah, drop by.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
It'll be fun.
Don't miss out. If you guys didn't catch it earlier, Greg Tompsett show tonight, premiering live, first episode. So make sure that you get on that. Head over to the Cover One YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed over there because that you will get all of our content as it comes out, guys. We're pushing out so much good content every other week. Joe, when are you going? When is your show starting out, bro?
Joe's
he's not on anymore.
he had
Joe
some
got a show.
tech.
So I think that's coming in the next week or two here.
He was saying,
for
yeah,
Joe as
probably
well.
next week. Yeah, so we'll keep
Perfect.
you updated on that. We'll have another Spaces
For
probably
sure.
before then, but
Yeah, not next week, but I will see you in a couple weeks and talk to you again, guys. Enjoy and go Bills.
have a great vacation, Aaron. Go Bills.
Thanks, man.